Hi, and welcome to this online tutorial on the warnings or error messages you may encounter when trying to complete a submission in the FCC's new Broadband Data Collection, or BDC system. I'm Sean Spivey, Chief of Staff of the Broadband Data Task Force. This tutorial is designed to highlight some of the more common issues you may encounter when filing your broadband availability data in the BDC system. Understanding the system's data validations and how to resolve the issues or error messages you may encounter will assist you in submitting your data as part of the biannual submission requirement. This video is part of a broader set of technical assistance materials that the FCC will make available to broadband service providers, governmental entities, consumers, and other stakeholders who will contribute data and information into the BDC to help improve the FCC's mapping of broadband availability throughout the United States. You can find additional information and resources on the BDC, including a link to submit a help request, by visiting fcc.gov/broadbanddata/help. Thank you for taking the time to watch this tutorial and for your efforts to prepare for filing broadband availability data as of June 30th.
This is the submission overview page of the BDC system. This page presents you with a summary of the data you have uploaded into the system. Certain cards or tiles on the page will be locked until you meet specific prerequisites. For example, service providers will need to provide valid subscription data, availability data, and supporting data before they are able to proceed to the final data checks section. If you have not provided valid data for each of these sections, the final data checks card will be locked, and you will be prevented from completing your submission until you rectify any issues with your data. Only after all cards on the submission overview page display a green checkmark can you progress forward to certification. As you upload your data, the tables on the submission overview page will display the data types and technologies that you have included within your submission. Filers must provide both subscription data and availability data for each technology. Users cannot proceed to the final data check section unless the data types and technologies for subscription data and availability data align. Here is one example of what users may see on the submission overview page as they work through a filing. In this example, a service provider has successfully uploaded fixed broadband subscription data containing copper and cable technologies, but has yet to upload any availability data. Because the subscription data on its own is valid, the submission overview page displays a green checkbox on the subscription data card. However, the table on the page below the cards is displaying a red hazard icon in the rows for fixed broadband, copper, and cable, signifying that these technologies must be included within the availability data. The availability data card reads as action required, and that status will remain until a user uploads valid fixed broad availability data with copper and cable technologies. A submission cannot include subscription data for a technology without corresponding availability data for that technology. Here is another example of what users may see on the submission overview page as they work through a filing. In this example, a mobile provider has successfully uploaded mobile availability data containing 3G, 4G LTE, and 5G NR technologies, leading to a green checkmark being displayed on the availability data card. In this case, the red hazard icon exists under the subscription data column of the table, signifying that the user must include mobile broadband subscription data before they are able to progress further. In the case of mobile, however, subscription data must be included if availability data is uploaded, but mobile subscription data is not broken out by technology, as it is for mobile availability data. When uploading your subscription data, files must be in a CSV or text file format. It is recommended to upload a single large file for your subscription data, as that upload process is more efficient than uploading numerous small files. There are multiple validation checks built into subscription data form entries and data uploads. If your upload fails these validation checks, you will be unable to save your submission until your data errors are resolved. For example, if 2 rows of your fixed broadband subscription data contain invalid technology codes, you will need to fix these errors and then re-upload your file in order for the BDC system to accept your data. Filing subscription data in the BDC system is similar to filing in the Form 477 system, although the list of technology codes for fixed broadband subscription data in the BDC differs slightly from the list in Form 477. Please be sure to consult the FCC's most recent data specifications for more information. Broadband providers that also offer voice service must enter their voice subscription data in the BDC system. As Form 477 filers are aware, The fixed voice subscription module requires a user to enter their data at the census tract level first, either via file upload or by form entry. Once the tract level data is completed, users will need to enter corresponding state level data by clicking on each state under the state level data link on the left pane of the page. A green checkmark next to a state signifies that the state level data is complete, while a red X indicates that state level data for that state is incomplete. Please note that if you complete your state level data, but then add additional tract level data at a later point, you will need to return to your state level data to update your totals. For state level data within fixed voice subscription, a checklist is displayed on the page to let you keep track of your progress. As you satisfy an item on the validation checklist, you will see a green check mark. Completing all items in the checklist will allow you to submit your data. In the screenshot on this slide, you will see a section highlighted in gray. These numbers are pulled directly from the tract level data you included within your fixed voice subscription data. As you upload data at the tract level, either via file upload or form entry, these numbers will be dynamically updated. On the interconnected VoIP subscriptions page, these numbers are read-only. There are 7 items in the validation checklist for interconnected VoIP subscriptions at the state level. Each of these items must be satisfied before you are able to submit your fixed voice subscription data. One way to simplify this page is to think of there being 4 horizontal calculations and 3 vertical calculations. In the examples on this slide, different colors are used to highlight areas of the page that must add up. These horizontal calculations are featured in 4 different colors: orange, green, purple, and sky blue. In each case, the total must equal the sum of the other forms in the color-coordinated row. On the same page, there are also 3 vertical calculations. In the first example, grand total subscriptions must equal total over-the-top subscriptions plus total of all other subscriptions. That path is shaded in red in the diagram on this slide. In this example, grand total subscription is $750, total over-the-top subscriptions is $600, and total all other subscriptions is $150. Because $600 plus $150 equals $750, that would satisfy the item on the validation checklist, which would result in a green checkmark at the top of the page. 2 other validations on this slide are performed in a similar manner and are highlighted in gold and blue. These vertical calculations must add up in order to successfully submit your data. Completing all 7 items in the checklist will allow you to submit your data. When uploading your availability data, the system supports 4 different polygon file types: Esri shapefile, GeoJSON, Esri file geodatabase, and GeoPackage. It is recommended that users submit their data in Esri shapefile format wherever possible, as it is the most commonly used format for data exchange. The data transformation and processing for shapefiles are well tested and mature. Users submitting fixed broadband availability data can submit their data as a polygon or as a list of locations within a CSV file. However, users cannot upload a mix of both polygon and location data for their fixed broadband availability during the same submission cycle. Esri file geodatabase and GeoPackage formats support multiple layers. However, for more efficient processing, it is recommended that users include only one layer within each file. We also recommend users submit their GIS polygon data in an unprojected geographic WGS84 EPSG 4326 geographic coordinate system, since that is what is used by the system. For more efficient processing, we recommend that large providers break their availability data, whether in a polygon or list of locations format, into multiple smaller files. For example, we encourage nationwide providers to upload 1 file per state. Your GIS availability data may be broken into smaller pieces in a process called subdivision. If a polygon in a GIS file has more than 10,000 vertices, the system will subdivide it for ease of processing and display. When a single polygon is subdivided into multiple smaller polygons, the new polygons will each have a new feature ID. This may make your polygons harder to track and cause invalid geometries, so we encourage you to break your coverage area into smaller polygons on your end, rather than relying on the system to do that. Here is an example of the feature counts functionality. A provider has uploaded mobile availability data for 4G LTE coverage. Because their file contained 1 polygon with more than 10,000 vertices, the system subdivided it into 1,074 feature IDs on the review map page. You can see that highlighted in yellow in this screenshot. So even though their original file included just one record, there are now 1,074 features shown on the map. Here is an example of the system displaying an invalid geometries warning. A user uploaded a polygon with more than 10,000 vertices. However, in this case, the subdivision process resulted in multiple invalid geometries, which the system repaired. Normally, a user can view any geometries that have been repaired by toggling a switch on the Confirm Map page. Clicking on the ID number in the table on the right will navigate the map to that geometry, which will then be highlighted in yellow. However, because there are more than 150 invalid geometries in this example, the user cannot view each of them. Clicking on the ID will still allow you to navigate to the reported geometry. There are some important things to keep in mind when working with your supporting data files that must be submitted within the mobile and fixed wireless polygon availability data. In particular, note that opening files, especially CSV files in Microsoft Excel, that were originally created in or output from other software may result in some unexpected transformations. For example, the fixed wireless propagation model details file must include a date that must be formatted as a 4-digit year and a 2-digit month and a 2-digit day. However, when you open a file in Excel with dates formatted that way, the program may automatically modify your dates to a different format. If you then save the file as a CSV with the dates formatted in this manner and upload it into the BDC system, you will receive an invalid data message, in this case that the terrain vintage column is not in the correct format, which leads to an invalid data error. Another example involves ratios, as Excel will often automatically transform ratios into a time format. In this example, all 6 rows of a file had a ratio of 2:1 in one column. However, if that file is open in Excel, then saved without specifying the format of the cells as ratios, the file will not be valid when uploaded into the system. Please be sure to consult the supporting data section of the FCC's most recent data specifications for more information. When you complete your final data checks, you may see a red banner appearing at the top of your screen. In these instances, you have a hard stop error, which means you cannot proceed towards certification. You must rectify the hard stop error by correcting and re-uploading data, and then rerun your final data checks in order to proceed. Hard stop errors can occur within subscription data, availability data, and/or supporting data, or as a result of comparing the three. Keep in mind that subscription data is the default tab for your final data checks results, but your hard stop error may be included within your availability data or supporting data. Be sure to check each card to view all errors associated with your final data checks. If at any point you update your data, either re-upload or re-entering subscription, availability, or supporting data, you will need to rerun your final data checks. If you receive a warning flag after running your final data checks, you can either correct and re-upload your data to resolve the issue that caused the flag, or you may enter a justification in a text box to explain why your data is correct, even though the warning flag was generated. Keep in mind that if you enter a justification for a flag and then make a change to your data, you will need to rerun final data checks again, and you will need to re-enter the justification if the flag occurs again. This is the case even if you edit one entry or just a field within your supporting data, but do not modify your subscription or availability data uploads. For this reason, we encourage you to complete all of your data corrections, modifications, and re-uploads before you begin entering justification text for any final data check warnings that you may have triggered. Otherwise, you may have to repeat your work. One of the final data checks compares subscription and availability data. When uploading fixed broadband subscription data, census tracts with subscribers for a particular technology must have associated availability data for the same technology. For example, if you upload data showing that you have copper subscribers in census tract 12345, then you need to upload corresponding availability data showing that you provide copper somewhere in census tract 12345, even if you don't offer service throughout the entire tract. If your fixed broadband subscription and availability data do not match in this way, you will see a hard stop error when you run your final data checks. You can view any census tract in which these errors exist by clicking on the Confirm Map from your final data checks page. On the right-hand side of the page, there is a toggle within the Subscription Data Comparison section. Toggling that icon will display any census tract with subscription data comparison warnings. You can also click on the tract number to zoom into that location on a map. All subscription availability data comparison errors are hard stops and must be rectified before a user can complete their submission. These geography-level comparisons only apply to fixed broadband data. However, higher-level comparisons apply to mobile broadband and mobile voice data. As in Form 477, service providers that submit mobile broadband subscribership data must also submit mobile broadband availability data and vice versa. The same applies to mobile voice. This concludes our tutorial on the warnings or error message that may prohibit you from completing a submission in the BDC. Thanks again for taking time to watch this tutorial and for your effort to be ready to submit fixed broadband availability data as of June 30th, 2022. Please remember to periodically check our website at fcc.gov/broadbanddata for links to commission orders, notices, tutorials, FAQs, and other resources. Questions about the BDC filing requirements may be submitted to the FCC by using the Submit a Request button on the Help Center from the link on that webpage. Thank you again for your efforts to prepare for the upcoming filing.